joined by Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Brunei LNG Sd Berhad, Mr. Leye Falade. He will be joining us visually. All right. All right. So, Mr. Leye Falade, if you can hear us, you can go on with your speech. Thank you, sir.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished leaders, policy makers, industry stakeholders, and honored guests. And I want to thank my friend and my brother, Dr. Emeka Okafor, for the privilege of being able to join. Desire was that I'll be able to join physically. Unfortunately, my schedule did not permit me to be able to travel from Far East Asia. We thought the next best thing was for me to try and join remotely. And it's indeed an honor. I've been online, I've heard the various speakers. I heard Engineer Engr Leye Falade did justice to also speaking about gas and utilization of gas. This afternoon, I'll be talking about advancing economic growth and energy security through financing investment and development of Africa's LNG infrastructure. Just for context, I've been in the industry for practically 3 decades, about 18 years spent upstream, and the last 11 years I've been in the midstream in the LNG business. So it's an honor for me to address you today on a subject that is of very immense importance to Africa's future: how we can advance economic growth and energy security as we think about financing, as we consider what it takes to invest, and as we look at the development of LNG infrastructure. I'm proud to be an African. Everywhere I go, my identity speaks of opportunity that is still yet to be tapped. We are blessed on every front. We are blessed with people. We are blessed with resources, but we're also blessed with lovely weather. One of our most abundant resources is natural gas. Collectively in Africa, we hold about 13% of the world's proven reserves. A resource base that if we manage to develop it, it can transform the economies and address the chronic challenges of energy poverty that we have in Africa. I'm going to cite a few examples. So if we start from Nigeria, I think earlier on, some of the speakers had already spoken about Nigeria being a gas country, not an oil country. We are the continent with proven reserves of over 200 TCF. That's what has been proven. What has not been proven, because we haven't taken it through the accounting, at another almost 600 TCF. With the proven reserve that we have, it ranks us among the top 10 globally. And trust me, Nigerians are not shy about reminding the world that they are the giant of Africa. This time, we have results for us to be able to back it up. If you go to Algeria, 9 TCF. Algeria is the 3rd largest gas supplier to Europe, but it's also a long-standing LNG exporter with very extensive infrastructure. Is it about Mozambique? Mozambique that is currently home to very massive offshore discoveries in the Rovuma Basin with proven reserves that is in the excess of 100 TCF? Or is it about Egypt with about 63 TCF of proven reserves? Or is it about Libya holding over TCF, though it's underdeveloped because of the instability that it has witnessed recently? But Libya remains an important part of African gas map. Or you talk about Senegal and Mauritania, where between the two of them, they have joint reserves in the greater Tortue Ameyin field that stands at about 15 TCF. Or is it about Tanzania that is estimated with reserves of about 57 TCF? Collectively, these reserves are not just numbers in report. They speak to our inheritance, but they also speak of a responsibility, and they speak of an opportunity. So when you think about Africa, Africa is a continent of opportunity. Across Africa, the energy demand continues to rise. Urbanization, industrialization, a very youthful population that is hungry for progress. And this continues to fuel this demand. Yet, we have about 600 million Africans that still lack access to reliable electricity. This paradox, energy wealth on one side, alongside energy poverty, is one of the greatest challenges of our time. Natural gas, and specifically LNG, provides a transformative opportunity. LNG offers us a strategic opportunity. If we properly harness it, it can fuel power generation and industrial growth. It can serve as a transition energy source in our march towards a low carbon future. In other climes, it has even been declared as a destination fuel. It can strengthen the intra-African energy trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. But it can also position Africa as a reliable supplier to global LNG markets. These days, we continue to see demand that is coming in from Europe with the disruption that came with Russia being dislodged from being the primary supplier to Europe, and Africa is just the focus that many are looking to. But the promise of LNG will not be realized through reserves alone. It demands that we have the right infrastructure. It demands liquefaction plants, pipelines, regasification terminals, storage facilities, and a very efficient distribution network. Across our continent, there are several projects already that illustrate both the challenge and the promise of LNG. One that has been spoken about earlier today is the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company that is situated in Brunei Island. One of the pioneers, this project has become Africa's largest industrial investment and a model of how natural gas can drive exports, create thousands of jobs, and generate revenue for national development. Train 7 that is currently under construction is expanding the capacity of NLNG by 35%, which will strengthen Nigeria's role as a global LNG supplier. Train 7 at the peak of its production, of its construction, has employed more than 12,000 people working directly on that island. Another one that we can look into is Mozambique. This was discovered just about a decade ago, and these gas fields represent one of the most significant finds in recent history. The Coral South FLNG project, already producing, is a groundbreaking floating LNG facility, while the larger onshore Mozambique LNG project is poised to transform the country's economy, despite many of the delays that it currently has. Now, these projects are expected to create tens of thousands of jobs. They're expected to lift GDP. They're expected to place Mozambique on the global energy map. Or is it about Senegal and Mauritania's Greater Total Ameni GTA project that straddles the maritime border? This joint development with BP and Cosmos Energy is a landmark in regional cooperation. The floating LNG facility is designed to deliver gas for both export and local use that supports both energy security while positioning Senegal and Mauritania as new entrants to the global LNG trade. Or if you think about the ambitions of Tanzania, negotiations are advancing. Tanzania is preparing to monetize its deep offshore reserves through a multi-billion-dollar LNG terminal. And once this becomes operational, this project has the potential to fuel domestic power generation while providing export revenues to fund development priorities. Each of these examples shows what is possible when vision, investment, and partnerships converge. They are more than projects. They are platforms for transformation. And Africa has the capacity for more. But let us be very candid. The path to more is not without obstacles. And there are 5 of those obstacles that I will just quickly talk about. The first one is financing gaps. LNG projects require billions in upfront capital. When Engineer Gite was speaking earlier on, he talked about gas projects, he talked about the massive capital investment that is needed for the infrastructure and network. When you come to LNG, it is in multiple times the kind of capital investment that you need upfront. Global financing institutions are now getting very cautious with hydrocarbon projects. The developed countries, the ministers have said that they are not going to invest in anything that has to do with hydrocarbon. The leading investors, Black Group and all of that in the world, they are no longer funding development that has to do with hydrocarbon. And so we start seeing pressures as we think about the energy transition as well. Without innovative financing, including public-private partnerships, sovereign wealth funds, and blended finance, many projects will remain projects that will just be on paper. The second obstacle has to do with the infrastructure bottlenecks that we have. Pipelines, ports, regasification terminals, and power plants, they lag far behind our reserves. And without us having an integrated infrastructure, gas cannot reach markets or household. Take, for example, Nigeria, we say we have proven reserve 210 TCF. Only about 30% of that today can be accessed. Many of the reserves that we have today are reserves that are considered as stranded gas. That if you don't have the network that allows us to be able to evacuate those reserves from where they are, they just remain potential, and that's what it is. The third obstacle that we need to confront has to do with regulatory uncertainty. Investors demand clarity and stability. Yet, in some jurisdictions, shifting fiscal regimes, corruption risk, and political instability continue to undermine confidence of investors. The fourth one are concerns around security. In regions like Mozambique, insurgency has disrupted project timeline. They are still struggling with it today. Stability and strong governance are essential for us to be able to protect investment. There is no investor that likes their billion-dollar assets that sits in a conflict zone. Is one of the obstacles that we continue to confront in Africa. But the fifth one has to do with our global transition pressures. There is a lot of demand right now, a lot of call for us to decarbonize, and we need to position LNG as part of that transition. It's not one that is in conflict with it. It's one that requires Africa to balance investment in LNG with parallel commitments to renewable as well. They actually go hand in hand and they support themselves. We see the future where what we would see will be more of the renewables and hydrogen, but that in itself also requires some partnership. And gas and LNG is a worthy partner to renewables. So let us be very clear. As we move from promise to prosperity, it requires very bold action. And allow me to highlight 4 pillars that we must build upon. The first one is financing the future. The scale of capital required for LNG projects is immense, running into tens of billions. And this is not small change. It's the kind of financing that tests the strength of entire economies. To put it into perspective, developing a single large LNG facility can cost as much as building several transcontinental highways. It's like trying to buy a Rolls Royce when your bank only offers bicycle loans. Traditional financing alone simply will not be sufficient. And this is why Africa must think innovatively. Public-private partnerships can de-risk projects and attract global capital. Blended finance models can bring in concessional funds from development partners alongside commercial investments. Green financing instruments such as climate-linked bonds can be leveraged, especially when we position gas as a replacement for dirtier fuels like coal and diesel. But financing alone is not enough. Bankability will depend on our ability to provide policy stability, regulatory clarity, and transparent governance, investors are very allergic to risk. They are allergic to uncertainty. If we want the billions to flow, we must create environments where capital feels not just welcome, but it also feels secure. The second pillar is investment with local impact. Foreign direct investment will always be a driver of mega infrastructure, but it cannot be the whole story. Africa must ensure that LNG development leaves more than just export terminals and balance sheet profits. This means local content, African engineers building the pipelines, African shipyards fabricating components, African service companies maintaining facilities, and African workers filling the jobs. We must go beyond being resource providers to being value creators. Every dollar of investment should be tied to skill transfer, technology adoption, and the growth of African industries. If LNG exports earn billions abroad, but fail to reduce unemployment or expand local industries at home, then we have built castles for others while our people live in tents. The measure of success must be how LNG contributes to Africa's industrialization, Africa's job creation, and Africa's long-term prosperity. The third pillar is infrastructure for energy security. Energy security is often framed in terms of export earnings, but for Africa, it's also a matter of dignity and development. How can we supply energy to the world while millions of our own citizens still remains in the dark? LNG infrastructure therefore serves two masters, the global market and the domestic consumer. Export terminals and shipping routes must be complemented by pipelines, gas to power plants, fertilizer factories, and distribution networks that feed African homes and industries. Think of it this way. Gas without infrastructure is like having food with no cutlery. Valuable, but unusable. By building integrated systems that prioritize both exports and domestic use, we can transform gas into a tool for regional integration, industrial growth, and reliable energy access. In doing so, LNG becomes not only a foreign exchange earner, but also a cornerstone of Africa's internal energy resilience. The fourth and the last pillar is sustainability and transition. No conversation about LNG is complete without recognizing the global push for decarbonization. Critics often frame hydrocarbons as outdated, but natural gas has a legitimate role as the bridge fuel of our time, especially for Africa. Just think about the case of Nigeria LNG. Prior to when NLNG came into existence, the oil fields were flaring our gas. It was so much, but with the advent of NLNG, gas flaring was reduced from more than 60% to less than 20%. Gas emits roughly half the carbon of coal and significantly less than oil. In regions where kerosene, diesel, and coal remain dominant, LNG offers a pathway to reduce emissions while powering growth. But we must go further. By coupling LNG infrastructure with renewables, solar in the Sahel, wind in East Africa, hydropower in Central Africa, we can leapfrog into a future where Africa provides energy that is both abundant, but it's also responsible. Positioned this way, LNG is not in conflict with the energy transition, but it's part of it. It's the fuel of development today that enables the cleaner energies of tomorrow. Africa should not be made to choose between growth and grain. We can and we must pursue both. As I try to conclude, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is standing at a crossroad. We hold vast reserves, demonstrated projects, and growing global demand in our favor. Yet, we also face financing hurdles, infrastructural gaps, and transition pressures. If we act boldly, mobilizing innovative financing, ensuring regulatory clarity, prioritizing domestic benefits, and forging global partnership, Africa's LNG will not only power industry abroad, but also illuminate villages at home. The time is now to turn reserves into revenues, projects into prosperity, and gas wealth into genuine human development. In advancing LNG infrastructure, we are not just building pipelines and plants. We're laying the foundation for a stronger, more secure, and more prosperous Africa. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I hand back to the person that is moderating, and it's been an absolute joy to give the keynote address on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.